It was evident by the end of the first session that Caitlin Clark wasn't only fitting in with Team USA. Around her, the system was expanding, contracting, and changing. Whispered among coaches and spectators, the remarks encapsulated not just a tactical reality, but also a moment in time when a single athlete transformed a team's speed, expectations, and very pulse. Clark's comeback to basketball was not a lighthearted one. It was a seismic event, the result of months of suffering, annoyance, and careful planning. The narrative around her changed as soon as she was sidelined in 2025. Instead of measuring her just by points or assists, fans, players, and analysts now assessed her by the gravitational pull she exerted every time she was on the court. Expectations and injuries collided throughout the harsh season that preceded this comeback. Clark's time on the floor was limited by a left ankle bone injury, recurrent groin problems, and preseason quadriceps strains. She has only played in 13 games by the middle of July. The absence was existential rather than just statistical for a player whose whole character was based on dependability, efficiency, and consistency. Both at Iowa and throughout her initial WNBA season, fans had become accustomed to witnessing her dominance. Her squad and the league as a whole felt tense due to the abrupt break in continuity and lack of rhythm. Conversations shifted to concern, ratings fell precipitously, and controversy erupted on social media. While some claimed that the fever had hurried her return, others suggested that the injuries were a reflection of larger systemic problems with officiating and toughness in the WNBA. Clark felt the pressure just as keenly off the court as she did on it because of the intense scrutiny and huge stakes. Yet Clark's approach to recovery was nothing short of methodical genius. The months away were not idle. Every day she attacked her rehabilitation with precision and intent. Resistance training, deceleration drills, hip and core strengthening were coupled with intense film study. She dissected defensive tendencies, analyzed spacing, and mapped the game in her mind's eye, transforming absence into laboratory of insight. Trainers who observed her quietly spoke in awe. Here was a player whose drive transcended normal motivation. She wasn't merely healing, she was evolving, preparing to return not just as a participant, but as the axis upon which an entire team would revolve. Tension was evident as soon as she entered Team USA's training camp in North Carolina. Every action, step, and initial contact was tracked, measured, and recorded. Warm-ups showed crisp ball handling, smooth mechanics, and a shooting style that appeared unaffected by months of inactivity. Yet the passion, rhythm, and confidence that characterized her play could not be measured by warm-ups alone. That would emerge only once scrimmages began. Full court, high speed, under pressure, with defenders testing every angle, with teammates adjusting instinctively to her decisions. There, Clark revealed not just recovery, but transformation. Her burst was back, her lateral quickness was back, her competitive ferocity, the quality that had made her a national icon, returned in full force. Each drive, each pass, each pull-up three became a statement. The guard was not only healed, she was sharpened. The reaction from veterans was immediate. Chelsea Gray, the floor general and cerebral anchor, didn't view Clark as a rival, but as a partner in orchestrating the offense. Gray slid off the ball, offered space, and silently acknowledged that Clark's instincts dictated tempo. Plum mirrored this trust, accelerating in lanes, hunting shots, and trusting that passes would find her before she even moved. The intangible component of trust, earned over years of competition, was instantaneous. It was a signal to every teammate. The game would unfold at Clark's pace, and survival depended on adaptation. Clark's mental acuity had sharpened in ways visible only to those paying close attention. Months observing games from the sidelines provided her a vantage rare among players. She read rotations, anticipated defensive shifts, and noticed spacing nuances that most only grasp in motion. Her processing speed appeared faster, her timing more precise, and her understanding of the court's geometry elevated. During scrimmages, she made readings that appeared prophetic, a step-back three taken at the precise time a defender overcommitted, a cut started before help came, and a pass threaded through a tiny area hardly perceptible to the unaided eye. These weren't ostentatious motions, rather they were the language of elite basketball, and when they were used with authority, the team's movements instantly changed. The coaching staff responded to this transformation with a willingness to rethink everything. Shot clocks were shortened, spacing expanded, sets reimagined around Clark's vision. The pace of drills increased, defensive pressures were intensified, advantage situations were created earlier in possessions. Bigs were instructed to anticipate cuts and seals before the ball even reached them. Wings were taught to read and drift instinctively. Every adjustment reflected a single truth: the team was adapting to Clark, not the other way around. The pivot transformed the camp's tone. Where drills had once emphasized precision and repetition, now they demanded instinct, urgency, and synchronization with a central engine. The story of Clark's collaboration with Aaliyah Boston was one of the most interesting. The two, who were well known from professional play, brought their synergy to the national arena with ease. Pick-and-roll plays became near telepathic. Boston's cuts were timed perfectly, and Clark's throws arrived at exact angles, leaving defenses in a never-ending bind. Boston finishes when you enter Clark's lane. Clark rises from deep when you sag off her. The result was a constant threat to score, a rhythm that was impossible for any team to completely predict, much less break. Clark's return also carried an aura of controversy. Media focus was intense, often overshadowing contributions from other stars. Some critics questioned whether the commercial and cultural weight she carried had imposed undue pressure on her recovery timeline. Off the court, she navigated league labor discussions, advocating for fair compensation while maintaining a measured public voice. Her role in these discussions sparked debate. Could a superstar influence systemic negotiation without polarizing the locker room or league stakeholders? Some applauded her leadership. Others questioned the wisdom of merging athletic influence with policy discourse. Regardless, Clark's poise in addressing these matters reflected a maturation that matched her evolution on the floor. Early scrimmages provided tangible evidence of her impact. A simple half-court handoff became a study in timing and anticipation. Clark exploded past a defender, accelerated through a narrowing lane, and threaded a pass into Boston's path before anyone reacted. The play didn't just produce points, it produced belief. The burst was real, the edge intact, and her decisions were fearless. Coaches' whispers shifted from cautious optimism to strategic calculation. The question was no longer, can she perform, but how do we build everything around her? Veterans noticed subtle distinctions that underscored her readiness. Sue Bird, a paragon of rhythm and timing, observed the fluidity of Clark's stepbacks, the square landings, and the precise gatherings. These minute details, often the first to degrade after injury, were intact, signaling that Clark's rhythm was not just restored, but enhanced. Observers recognized that a body healed is different from a body re-engineered. Clark had emerged from absence not just recovered, but recalibrated, stronger, smarter, and more precise than before. Her presence had an impact that went beyond a single performance. At first, there were misunderstandings, but it soon became apparent that Clark's basketball IQ was higher than her colleagues' natural timing. Cuts happened before defenders could fully react, passes arrived in windows that appeared unattainable, and spacing dynamically stretched to fit her vision. The coaching staff came up with a bold solution. They modified the squad, increased anticipatory movement, decreased hesitation, and raised collective pace. Under the influence of Clark's judgment, Team USA changed from a collection of top athletes into a single cohesive entity. Clark's influence on the court was matched off it. Film sessions emphasized anticipation and split-second windows, training teammates to read opportunities rather than react. Conversations in locker rooms and weight rooms revolved around spatial intelligence, readiness, and strategic thinking. Clark's presence demanded engagement, accountability, and creativity, qualities that transformed the team's culture from cautious adherence to assertive collaboration. She became both the benchmark and the measure, the player whose standards everyone else sought to meet. The cumulative effect was clear by the end of the first week. Team USA was no longer a collection of stars. They were an ensemble evolving around Clark's rhythm, vision, and decisiveness. Her comeback was more than personal triumph. It was a statement. The next era of women's basketball had arrived, and it was defined by a player whose return reshaped every facet of the game. With every pass, cut, and shot, she forced teammates, coaches, and opponents to adapt. Her presence demanded that everyone move faster, think sharper, and execute with confidence. Clark's story was not just about overcoming injury, it was about redefining leadership, influence, and elite performance. Months away had forged mental clarity and court vision that no amount of live play alone could provide. Her body, rehabilitated and strengthened, enabled her to execute with precision. Her mind, sharpened by observation and study, allowed her to anticipate, manipulate, and control the pace of play. Every possession, whether in scrimmage or camp drill, became a lesson in timing, trust, and adaptation for the entire team. Even as the qualifiers approached, the narrative extended beyond wins and losses. Clark had become a magnet, drawing attention, energy, and responsibility. Every drill demanded heightened awareness. Every rotation required recalibration. Younger players accelerated their learning curves. Veterans rediscovered adaptability, and coaches reimagined strategy. In essence, the team itself became a reflection of Clark's evolution, disciplined, dynamic, and centered around a single vision. By the conclusion of the camp's first phase, it was evident that Team USA's approach had permanently shifted. Drills that once emphasized structured repetition now prioritized instinct, speed, and situational intelligence. Offensive sets were designed around Clark's decision-making. Defensive rotations adjusted to the tempo she imposed. The tempo of play had increased, as had the stakes. Every possession was a test, every movement a declaration. Clark's return was not just a comeback, it was a revolution. Her influence extended into the intangible, shaping culture and expectation. Conversations in locker rooms, gyms, and film rooms no longer revolved solely around execution. They revolved around anticipation, adaptation, and relentless preparation. Clark had not just returned to play, she had returned to lead, to inspire, and to set the standard. Her journey through injury, isolation, and strategic reflection had culminated in a presence that demanded excellence, rewarded initiative, and punished hesitation. Every movement carried intent, every glance commanded attention. Teammates instinctively elevated their play, opponents hesitated under her gravity, and coaches watched in awe as a player who had been absent now dictated the pace of every contest. Ultimately, Clark's comeback transcended individual performance. She became the linchpin of Team USA's identity, the engine driving tempo, decision-making, and confidence. Her presence catalyzed tactical evolution, forged collective trust, and reshaped the league's narrative. The message was unmistakable. This was a new era of basketball, one in which the game moved at Clark's pace, revolved around her vision, and demanded adaptation from every participant. In every pass, every cut, every shot, Caitlin Clark declared a truth both simple and profound. She was not merely back, she had returned to redefine the game itself. But the impact went far beyond what could be measured in points or assists. It permeated the locker room, shaping the attitudes, preparation, and ambitions of every teammate. Veterans who had long relied on established patterns suddenly found themselves recalibrating, stretching their skill sets to match her vision. Players like Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young elevated their pace, extended their range, and embraced the chaos Clark thrived in. Even the youngins, whose game had often revolved around predictable timing, now learned to read the floor differently, anticipating passes that would arrive before the window fully opened. It was a subtle, almost invisible shift, but one that transformed the team's chemistry. Practices became less about drills and more about synchronization, instinct, and constant communication, a living, breathing demonstration of elite basketball intelligence. Fans and observers couldn't help but notice. Social media erupted with clips from scrimmages showing impossible passes, deep threes, and lightning-fast transitions. Every highlight reinforced a single narrative. Clark wasn't just playing again, she was elevating everyone around her. Ratings for Team USA's sessions surged, and merchandise sales spiked, reflecting a league that had, in no small part, become dependent on her presence. Commentary shifted from speculation about her injuries to admiration for her resilience, her work ethic, and the audacity with which she commanded the floor. Younger players watched closely, learning not just from her athleticism, but from her discipline and poise. Clark's ability to maintain focus, even under intense scrutiny, demonstrated what it meant to combine talent with mental fortitude. Her presence was both aspirational and instructional, a real-time lesson in anticipation, spatial awareness, and decision-making at the highest level. Off the court, her guidance extended into mentoring sessions, film breakdowns, and one-on-one conversations, helping cultivate a culture where preparation, accountability, and strategic thinking became as valued as scoring. Tactically, Clark's comeback forced coaches to rethink conventional wisdom. Systems previously designed to accommodate a range of skill levels were now molded to fit the instincts and timing of a transcendent playmaker. Offensive spacing was stretched to maximize her shooting range. Rotations were reimagined to leverage her vision. Defensive strategies were adjusted to account for her ability to create mismatches before they fully materialized. Team USA wasn't just adapting, they were evolving. Each practice, each scrimmage, each controlled drill became an experiment in speed, precision, and responsiveness, with Clark at the epicenter. Her ability to dictate the rhythm challenged every player to match her pace, fostering growth, confidence, and cohesion in ways that would last long beyond a single training camp. In the end, Clark's comeback was a declaration. It was a declaration that hardship, no matter how overwhelming, could be turned into opportunity. It demonstrated that a player may not only return to her previous level, but also reach a new level with preparation, dedication, and vision. As Team USA advanced towards qualifying, it was more than just a group of gifted players. It was a living example of Clark's impact. Expectations were altered, presumptions were questioned, and the basketball community was reminded of a straightforward but indisputable fact. Caitlin Clark returned to lead, inspire, and to redefine what was possible on the court. The echo of her presence in each pass, cut, and shot served as a reminder to everyone watching that the next age of women's basketball was already here, headed by a woman whose brilliance had refused to be lessened by doubt, injury, or time.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into Hollywood's hidden history.